everybody, and wishing you all a very happy new year. I know it's not quite as we had hoped it would be, but staying in touch with you all in our community is the most important thing that we can do. So, it is January 2021, and we hope that this year will bring hope to so many across the world. And as you can see, and I've probably given it away now, our value for the next few weeks is going to be hope, really important at this time. And our composer is Mozart. So I hope as you were listening to the music at the beginning there, you were able to identify lots of instruments. Actually, it was the whole orchestra playing, so if you listen carefully again at the end, you might be able to identify a few more. So what is hope? Really quite a complicated value for us to understand. And there were two definitions that I found when I was planning for this assembly. The first one is that hope is believing that good things will happen. And I tried to think of some examples of this. So birth of a new baby might be an example of hope, like Jesus at Christmas time. And also in our community, we're preparing for the launch of Simon Ball Mini Farm this term. And actually, our guinea pigs who are coming to our farm, kindly donated by one of our families at Simon Ball, the guinea pigs have been born just last Sunday. So it's really exciting and hopeful that we'll be ready for them. Lots of research to be done. I know times are tricky at the moment for lots of you, but there is certainly hope to be found in the time that you're able to spend with your families, those precious moments. Now, I found a second definition of hope that I also thought might be helpful for you. Hope is also about how we cope when we find ourselves in a difficult situation. It's really important to have hope and to believe that we can solve those situations. And I thought I'd give you a couple of examples just to think about before we move on to the story that I wanted to share with you today. So perhaps one example might be that you have a friend who's a little bit upset. Maybe they've fallen out, had an argument or a disagreement with another friend. What could you do to turn that situation into one full of hope? How could you help? Something to think about perhaps when this assembly's ended. So my second example is perhaps you have a friend, again, who's a little bit upset. Perhaps they're finding their home learning tricky. Perhaps they're not sure who to ask. Can you have a little think about how you could use hope in that situation? What you could advise them to do? And thirdly, it's important that I talk to you about the coronavirus. I'm sure your families have too. It's been a very, very challenging year for so many in so many different ways. But it's really hopeful at the moment that things will be able to return to normal. We will be welcoming you back to the Larch. And some of you may have heard on the news that the most hopeful thing is that a vaccine has now been found, and it is just time before we can make sure that everybody is safe and that you can return to all of the things that we know you really, really love doing. So 3 examples there where hope is a very important value. Now, I'd like to share with you Lubna and Pebble. Even for year 5, I don't want you to think Mrs. Kirk's got a picture book, this is too easy and babyish for us. Absolutely not. This story has got some really important messages in it that I'd like you to be thinking about as I read. Lubna's best friend was a pebble. It was shiny and smooth and grey. Lubna found it on the beach when they arrived in the night. Then she fell asleep in Daddy's salty arms. When Lubna opened her eyes, it was morning. They had landed in a world of tents. Lubna clutched Daddy's hand and gripped her pebble. Somehow, she knew they'd keep her safe. In a big white tent, Lubna found a felt-tip pen. She drew a happy face on her pebble. "Hello, Pebble," whispered Luna. Pebble smiled back. Lubna told Pebble everything about her brothers, about home, about the war. Pebble always listened to her stories. Pebble always smiled when she felt scared. "I love you, Pebble," sighed Lubna. Then the winter arrived. The winds began to blow. The tents began to flap. Daddy said, "Come close, I'll keep you warm." But Lubna was worried. What if Pebble gets a cold? That must never happen, said Daddy. He went and found a shoebox and a tea towel. Thank you, Lubna grinned. Then she put Pebble to bed and kissed it good night. Soon a little boy arrived. At first he had no words, just blinks and sneezes and stares. This is my best friend Pebble, Lubna said. The little boy coughed and sneezed, then smiled. Hello, Pebble, my name's Amir. Lubna and Amir became friends. They played hide and seek underneath the stars. But at bedtime, Lubna whispered to Pebble, You are still my best friend. One day, Daddy was beaming. We are leaving. We have found a new home. Lubna felt happy. Then sad. Amir cried. That night, Lubna couldn't sleep. She asked Pebble what to do. Pebble didn't answer. But by the morning, Lubna knew. What's she going to do, I wonder? Lubna gave Amir the shoebox and the pen. What do I do if Pebble misses you? Asked Amir. Draw the smile back on, said Lubna. And what do I do if I miss you? Tell Pebble all about it, Lubna said. Amir nodded and held the shoebox tight. Goodbye, Pebble, Lubna whispered. Hello, Pebble, Amir said. And so I'm sure you noticed that in that story, there were times that were really difficult. If you listen carefully, you heard Lubna mention war. And yes, that her daddy and her were fleeing from war. They were refugees. They arrived in the camp with the tents. So a very, very difficult tale. And yet there were so many examples of hope. Hope found in the love between Lubna and her daddy, then the new friendship that she had with Amir, the importance of Pebble all through the story, and then that wonderful moment of hope where she hands the pebble to Amir. Lubna knew she had a new home to go to and a new future, and I hope that through her passing that pebble to Amir, he too would have hope for the future and for a home for himself. Okay, as I mentioned before, you were listening to Mozart there this morning, and I'm going to put this on again for you in a moment. And the piece that I was playing you was the overture to The Marriage of Figaro. Thought it linked too, because marriage is a very hopeful time for families. You're all doing a super job at home. We miss you very much, of course, but we're so impressed by the first few days of home learning. We definitely want you to stay in touch with us. Thank you for everything that you're doing already. Do have hope for the term ahead. Do enjoy that special time with your families. And if you need anything at all, you know where we are. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.